All right. Hey, Josephine, how you doing?
Hey.
Hey, yeah, it's good to have you here and actually be able to sit down and have a chat. Yeah, like we've touched on quite a few different things since we've been here, but we've never had like a full discussion about it. So,
We've been trying to.
yeah,
I
exactly.
spend my most of my time here trying to get one-on-one time with people to talk about things. I would like to. I'll explain a little bit more about how I ended up here and what I want to talk
Yeah,
to people about in a minute. But I've been trying with you now for the
yeah,
best part
too
of a
long.
month. Yeah.
Yeah, well, now's the perfect opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's hear a bit about like why you came here in the first place. So, I know you're doing a research project. Um, yeah, like tell me a bit about your story. Like, what led you down this road in your life?
Mm.
Where's your interest in like shamanism and sort of these different healing modalities and everything that you're doing? So,
So I was always someone who wasn't too far from a mindfulness book or I had books on mindfulness for adults, coloring books, all kinds of things in all my different jobs. So those jobs were within fashion, they've been in different editorial contexts. So in an e-commerce company, in a small magazine, in a media startup. I've worked within written editorial throughout my 20s. I'm in my late 20s now. And I spent all those years in one place. I was in London and I was very just very much in a rhythm of I do my job, I see my friends, I go and socialize. I had some weekends away, but I really wasn't traveling. And actually, I craved all of those years to be traveling further afield, to be feeling really free. I think freedom was that what I wanted within the travel experiences. And I needed to rewild and uncage myself. And I think that need to free myself of these shackles I created, as much as there was fun and there was good stuff in there, I was sort of caged. I found myself delving into shamanic healing. And it's sort of, classic. You seek out this sort of healing modality when you go through a time of change or crisis. And for me, it was around the time of my breakup with my then partner of 5 years. And I sought out a healer who read my tarots, who sort of performed a shamanic healing without any medicines. And I was so calm. Suddenly my voice would drop and I'd be calm and I was centered and I was clearer than I had been. And I felt more alive. So I had all these little breadcrumbs, feeling more alive through these experiences. And I started studying social anthropology at master's level. So I thought I was drawn to that subject and I thought it was a complementary subject to my journalism, and it has been. Um, I didn't know it would so drastically change the direction of my life and lead me to Gaia Sagrada. um, I I took steps to get here. I was very conscious about designing a project that really spoke to me. I became really interested in shamanism through my studies. So we would look at different worldviews. We were looking at different belief systems surrounding animism, so the aliveness of the elements, the aliveness and spirits that reside in all of the things around us. And for me, it was this really kind of mind cracking open moment where suddenly I kind of realized there's so many different ways to experience this life. And I decided to design a research project for my thesis around the phenomena of people coming to a center like Gaia Sagrada for healing and the possibilities that are created within this space. So I wanted to look at not why people are coming here, because we know people come here for the healing of traumas. And we know it's deeply personal, and it was never my intention to probe and understand what those are. Even though they're shared widely in the circles, it wasn't my goal to come and learn why people are here. I was more interested in the runnings of a place like this and how this space is perceived in the sort of, and where this place sits in some kind of wider social context. So, this kind of idea that it's a bubble, that it's its own ecosystem, I've really felt that here. And I've definitely been in this kind of, this bubble, this cocoon, and I suppose I wanted to explore different themes, like, this notion of utopia. That was my own framing, really, me sort of desiring to find a utopia and being met with myself and having to sit with myself, which hasn't been that utopian, but also all the different politics and dynamics and energy expended and energy gained. And, there's so much going on here. So,
can I ask you a question?
Yes, you can. I will keep talking.
No, you're good. That's interesting. But first, I just want to ask you, what is your version of utopia?
That's a really good question, because I don't have a clear-cut answer, and I've been wondering what I mean by this and why I've been seeking it out. I suppose it's a space void in in my sort of idealistic view, a space void of pressure, void of things to do, places to be, feeling really good in yourself, feeling really energized, feeling really free of relationship issues and free of everything, and just like sort of like being like a fairy and running, skipping around I don't know, I guess.
Don't you think that would create boredom though? So just say if like everything's just super chill and easy and there's no sort of purpose or objective, everyone's just frolicking around, being happy, like I don't know, I sort of find the concept contradictory in itself, because part of what makes life so perfect is the like dysfunction of it, is that it is so messy and there's so many things to do, and we're constantly trying to heal ourselves and learn different things and make our lives work, that there's almost like this ironic beauty in it to an extent, which to me, like, I would almost describe as like perfection, utopia, because I know I try and think of it in other ways. It's like, okay, what if we did have this like perfect society, everything was just laid out for us and everything was happy? Like, I sort of feel like that'd be boring. Like, what would we do? What would we do without that drive to actually want to like change the world and change ourselves and ultimately keep striving to better ourselves? Wouldn't we stagnate if like there isn't this constant learning curve?
I think learning is what makes life fun. I agree that learning is what gives me so much fulfillment, and having these breakthroughs, seeing things differently, is definitely what excites me about life. I guess I just wanted a break from just all the kind of dramas, and I just wanted, I don't know what it is I wanted. I guess actually in many ways this is, the closest in some ways to that kind of utopian ideal, because of where we are geographically. We're surrounded by nature. It's peaceful, and that we've got fire burning here. We're connected to the elements.
That's interesting. Just like a shadow moving thing. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Remember the other day that we were having that conversation about like seeing sometimes like shadows and movements. Anyway, sorry, keep going.
No, this is fine. I mean, we can segue to the paranormal, because I'm interested in how one thing I asked you was how your visuals have changed since taking ayahuasca. So your whether you're seeing, or you connect with shapes and spirits. Because you look like you are right now. Tell me what's happening right now.
Oh no, it's just like, how like sometimes in the corner of your eye, do you ever get this? Like in the corner of your eye, you see like this movement. It's almost like someone's there, but then like you look at it and nothing's really there.
I've had that a lot since ayahuasca.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I definitely.
Yeah, it's just like I can't stop looking at this seat now. I'm just like, that's trippy, but Yeah. Okay. Moving on. Moving
Well,
on. With my life.
I would love if you wanted to sit with that for a second.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I definitely have a different understanding experience with energies. One thing I'm very connected to, and this is happening all the time. It's happening to me right now as I speak about it. I get shivers running through my body so often. I get constant waves of shudders, of these, someone called them truth bumps once, like, what's the other term for them? Goosebumps. This term,
Yeah.
goosebumps.
Just thinking about it.
Someone could be talking about something, and if it really rings true, or if it, is really powerful, it sends shivers through my body.
Yeah, I know the feeling that you're talking about.
Yeah.
I get that sometimes as well.
Yeah, I'm really connected to it. But I love throwing myself into situations where I'm having like a full human experience by staying in different places, by just being quite brave and adventurous. And one thing I'm going to do next month is stay in this house by myself in a really rural area in Ecuador for 10 days to write my paper. And I also do my remote work. So I'm going to be sat there in the house by myself. And, I've got so many things to look forward to. And I'm so fixated on how scared I feel about being in a house by myself in the forest. And I have to remember I've chosen to do that.
What exactly is the fear coming from? Like, what makes you? Because that sounds like it'd be a nice thing.
The fear is this fear that there's going to be some axe-wielding murderer. Really, like, this is it.
Yeah.
And I don't watch horror films. I don't watch anything that could, well, I don't currently watch anything, but in the past I've watched things where someone's face appears at the window, or, that kind of thing. And it's really an irrational fear.
Yeah. I guess it's sort of, when you see that sort of horror movies and media and things, it burns an impression in your mind. And but on the other hand, I'm sure it's going to be a beautiful experience. Spending some time by yourself. Don't worry, I'm sure no axe wielding maniacs are going to arrive at your door. But like I hear where you come from.
But then the paranormal side of things. I mean, I'm somewhat grateful that I've not had access to that kind of paranormal. That as much as I've wanted, now I'm doing it when it's catching my eyes. As much as I've wanted to connect with something more and see it, I haven't had that.
Well, what about plant medicines and stuff? Are you just speaking sober, or just like in terms of anything? Do you feel like you've ever dipped into different dimensions or realms, seen spirits, entities?
I've had three experiences with ayahuasca. One experience with San Pedro and ayahuasca, so 4 ayahuasca. I have definitely found myself in a different realm. And for me, it wasn't like taking a psychedelic. It was like meeting a plant, or entering this other realm. And I approached it with this respect, to be meeting this spirit. So for me, it wasn't as though I was taking a substance and, I'm in an altered state and this is a trippy experience. I don't use language like that. For me, it's been a case of connecting with a spirit, welcoming the spirit, being in communication with the spirit to say, show me what I need to see, help me release what I need to release. And it's taken me deep into my own experiences, memories. And I found myself questioning things like, the whole structure of my life. Why why did I end up doing that? Why did that person put me on a pedestal, make me feel that way? Wow, that thing I thought was the truth is wrong. All of those kind of feelings are ones that I experienced in my first ceremony. And in all three of my ceremonies, I have found myself deep in another world. So I really embraced and enjoyed being in an altered state of consciousness. And as I say, haven't treated it as though I'm taking a drug, a psychedelic, and tripping, but as though
You're actually sort of meeting the spirit.
communicating. Yeah, I'm entering a sort of a whole different way of experiencing life in this energetic body. And actually, what I was saying after the first ceremony was that I understand pain bodies now. I understand that there is more than meets the eye with this human experience, and that we all have these pain bodies that we exist alongside, coexist with. So have I seen entities? I haven't sat face to face with an entity and had a conversation with entity or spirit, or seen eyes, or seen any kind of key religious iconography that some people speak of. It's been more that I've connected with these sort of geometric patterns, very intense visuals. And I shut my eyes and don't go towards that. I go towards the heavy feelings that I need to process and work through. So I don't get distracted by that. And if I do, I get myself into a panic state where I realize that I don't have control of my body and I'm in this really altered state. So I look forward to meeting entities and I'm open to that. But I haven't had that yet.
Yeah, okay. Well, I guess it's first like how you even describe it, but saying that ayahuasca itself is an entity in a sense. Like when you're taking it, you sort of, as you said it yourself, it doesn't feel like you're just tripping balls. It feels like you're actually like connecting to some sort of conscious entity that sort of navigates the trip, and it shows you what it wants you to see and what you need to see, and it can reveal all these different layers about your own consciousness and the collective consciousness in our life experiences, and just so many different things. What's your perception like being at Gaisagrada and all these ceremonies when like they're talking about it as if it is an entity, it is some sort of form of consciousness that we're connecting to? They never call it a drug. They never even call ayahuasca a psychedelic. And sort of tying back to what you were saying at the beginning, what's that word again? Animism. I forgot it. You said a word like that I haven't heard in a while. It's like that all objects have some sort of consciousness.
Oh, animism.
Animism, yeah, that's one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fascinated with that concept. Some cultures really imbue all the things around us with this spirit, this sense of spirit.
And you see that a lot here, especially with the elements and things. It's like shamans are always talking about grandfather fire and mother water.
Exactly.
And Father Wind or Grandfather Wind, and it's sort of like they speak to it, and you can tell that it's genuine as well when they're talking about these elements, that they really do perceive them as spirits and entities that are capable of, like Mother Water is capable of droughting and not giving us rain, and Grandfather Fire is capable of being very destructive. And, it's interesting to just like hear everything about it. It's like when you come to these sort of places and dabble in these cultures and shamanic traditions, it's not just going here to trip balls and sort of do some healing through the psychedelic state. It's like we are connecting with spirits and we are connecting with different entities and energies and all these different things from these cultural beliefs and standpoints.
Yeah.
Go on.
Well, to that, I would say, once you open that portal and you open that communication, whether you do it consciously and think, I want to connect with these particular spirits, or you think I'm here to, in some people's words, trip balls, whatever approach you take, I think surely by having medicine in your system and having had this communication with this plant spirit, that you surely can't close the door. You can't go back, in my opinion. And what it looks like with that, that door open, I suppose, is different from person to person, and how much you keep up with the practice, perhaps, how much you choose to go deeper. I think, some people feel more called to continue on this path. Some people feel like, they're coming here and they're having an experience. Maybe they'll come back again. Maybe it was a once in a lifetime thing they'll do. There's some people I've met who have
just keep coming back and just keep coming back.
That, but I was going to say that there are some people who are very, very much on their travels through South America, and they're just ticking a box with this experience, and there's no harm in doing that. But it's different to the person who has this experience and goes, wow, I want to make this part of my life forevermore. And I feel like I'm in that latter camp where I am so curious about going further with ayahuasca specifically for now, to learn more in that altered state. So when you speak about learning and how it keeps us excited and it keeps us from boredom, I think ayahuasca can be a tool for this process of learning about oneself and the universe. And I guess my question to you, because you have had so many experiences now with ayahuasca, is what do you think is behind that door that I talk about metaphorically? And can you close the door?
That's a good question. I think, through taking these medicines and sort of diving into these traditions, it does open some sort of gateway in your mind and your consciousness, sort of like a connection to the spiritual realm that can't necessarily be closed. And it's like the further you go through that door as well, and the more you start experiencing otherworldly things. So first it starts with medicines, and you start seeing things when you're sober, and like lots of crazy things start happening in your life, and you're like, why am I permanently tripping? Like, what is going on? I feel like it is a rabbit hole of sorts, but it's just super interesting because there's such a depth of information that you can access to improve your own life, to do incredible things in the world, to manifest different things. Like, I feel like you can get to the level where you can just be like, oh, I'm just going to manifest a house. I'm just going to manifest like essentially whatever you want. And you can gain these abilities and powers that are so far beyond us, because the further you go into that realm, I feel like physics almost, like the rules of our universe start to break down as you go into this other sort of, I don't know if you've heard the term 5-dimensional reality or not.
I've heard the term, but you have to tell me more.
Okay, so 5-dimensional reality, from my understanding, is like pretty much like at a crossroads between this dimension and the spiritual dimension. So sort of like an intersection point. So when people say like 3-dimensional reality, they mean like purely in this sort of survival state level where everything's based on physics and sort of the rules that we understand through science. And it's just like, this is the end all and be all. This is everything there is. But 5-dimensional reality is when you start tuning into these other dimensions, that they actually start influencing this reality. So you can start bending reality and manifesting things and changing things. And as you're sort of like protruding into it, because our reality is malleable. Like, it can change, but when we're locked in this sort of 3D consciousness state, when we're on this like survival base level and we haven't sort of dipped in to these other realms, it's solidified, and it's much more difficult because it's sort of like the rules of, how do I describe it? It's like there's no, like, spirituality doesn't exist in the 3-dimensional, but when you start actually accessing it and getting into it, then it's like the only thing that exists, and almost like the rules of this reality don't exist. And it's like there's an intersection point, I find, and it's like the deeper you go into your spiritual pathway, the more you start to access these different tools and things to really start like recreating your reality in some crazy ways. Because after all, like, it is all a manifestation. like this is reality from my understanding and perspective. Like this is like a dream. It is an idea. It's like um, the imagination of God, so to speak. So
Yeah, I mean, in the sweat lodge where I drank ayahuasca, you've done, how many sweat lodges have you done?
like maybe 4.
Okay, so you're a bit of a pro. I'm a novice with just one.
Well, I haven't done too many.
But I was in the sweat lodge and I just had this real wave of awareness that reality can be anything I want it to be. My life can be anything I want it to be. I have so much power to choose what I want to do, where I want to be, and who I want to be. And I really connected to that truth in that moment. And I'm grateful for San Pedro for showing me that. And I have a whole day taking San Pedro tomorrow, where I'm going to be leaning.
It's going to be fun.
It's going to be fun. I'm going to be leaning into future visions, manifestations, because I feel receptive to bring those into manifestation. I did ecstatic dance tonight in the space we're in now, in the meeting hall, and I found myself through my dance movements, like planting seeds. One of my dance moves was like planting seeds was the first move. Then I would imagine myself watering the seeds. Then I would call on the elements. I would call on the sun to give life to these seeds and watch them grow. And I was harvesting them and holding it in my heart. And I feel like that. I really feel in that state of I can just plant my seeds. I can.
If you can plant your seed.
I can like, you know, and it's. I think if the energy is behind something, the energy is behind. If the energy is behind anything, it's going to. Something's going to happen, you know. And if the energy is behind fear, it's you know, objectively just a source of like draining. It just drains you. It's a waste of energy. So I really need to focus on redirecting from fear to that manifestation, because
Sure, like objectively, first it makes you feel shit. You're living in this state of fear. You're not gonna be living to your full potential and making the most out of life. But also on a more metaphysical level, fear is a low vibration. So it's like you start attracting, your reality starts like morphing around that paradigm of fear, because that's what you're manifesting into your reality based on your vibration. So it depends how you want to look at it.
I guess it goes back to the law of attraction thinking with like attracts like, and as you say, the vibrational attraction. I believe that. And I believe that for I can see different parts of my life when I'm a certain vibration, the way I'm living my life, the things I'm putting in my body, the things I'm watching, engaging with, all those different things. I can trace back to the people I was with, the places I was in. That was low vibration. I used to be in London on the tube, the underground, and the underground would screech. Like the train would go, you know, with the brakes on, and like just so smelly and sooty and horrible, like just really a heaviness. People had these really glum faces.
I was just about to say, like,
people had heavy
stereotype
faces.
is everyone's just depressed, everyone's just standing there. And
people have heavy faces, and you know, people are working jobs to survive, to live in the city. People come from all backgrounds, all different socioeconomic statuses. There are people who have no option but to be in that state of grinding it out, you know, because they live in the city.
But do they have the option, do you think? Or do you think they're just so far consumed in that reality that they haven't broken out of it?
I had this conversation with someone last retreat, and it's a really hard one to navigate in terms of, you know, the places that people find themselves. You know, someone who's born into life in a tower block in London, they have less opportunities than the person born into a 4-bedroom sprawling house in a fancy part in London, right? And there are many initiatives, there's many people who work hard to try and give young kids equal opportunities. There are many kind of youth groups and people who would really try, but people find themselves sucked into gang culture. People find themselves sucked into, you know, working to survive, like from a young age.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. It's a difficult one. You know, I guess it comes back to this sort of abundant mindset and seeing opportunities and the scarcity, lack mindset. But privilege is a really difficult one to navigate because I think that there aren't equal opportunities. And but that said, there are people who move from being in that space where they've got no opportunities, where things are heavy, and they end up creating something really important to help others, and they produce good work.
So it's, like the way I see it is there's definitely advantages and disadvantages. Like some people are just going to have much more abundance in opportunities and different things from the get-go. Some people are going to have to really work hard to sort of break out of that sort of predetermined lifestyle.
That's a good way, predetermined. People are born into situations where, well, their trajectory is predetermined because their parents did that thing,
but not completely. It's like it just makes it a lot harder for them. But at the end of the day, radical self-responsibility is about accepting our life circumstances and being like, is this situation that I was born into or this situation that I'm in right now going to define who I am? And I think there's always a route around it. There's always ways to sort of get out of that mentality and open your mind and find some sort of escape out of that lifestyle, because it happens all the time and a lot of people do.
Often, I think that there is like a need to encourage and motivate people and show them that there are other ways of being and there are opportunities, as I said, about different youth groups and different ways to kind of mobilize people. But I think, maybe this framework works in America and the UK, but then you look at somewhere, Vietnam or India, we're talking a whole different experience with opportunities and the way their societies are structured. But I think there are many societies where there is this opportunity to ascend your kind of socioeconomic status that you're born into. But I think if you have no examples around you and you have no awareness or kind of inspiration, then I think that, perhaps you are stuck there. But I think, I think it's a privilege to be here, to be able to take the time, spend the money, for many people spending a lot of money, to sit with themselves and feel all their negative emotions, because we live in many people find themselves having to put on a brave face and having to be positive to hold their families together and to persevere and to keep everyone's spirits up. They don't have the privilege to feel sad and to feel their emotions. I think it's a privilege to be able to feel the things we feel. I think we need to do something with this privilege to help anyone we can.
Yeah.
That we know through plant medicine, we know things that a lot of people don't. A lot of people perhaps will find a connection with source through religion. We'll find a deeper connection to themselves through meditation. But I think to really enter these worlds of plant medicines, I think you change your whole perception, reality so radically.
Yeah, you're right. It is a privilege to be able to do this. And that's sort of, it's ironic as well, because it's like with having that privilege and doing these things, we heal more, we start bettering ourselves more, and we just essentially gain more tools, this growing tool set to recreate a better life experience. So sort of like, what's the opposite of a catch-22? It's like when things just get better and better and better.
And it's so cool to be like tonight dancing around in this room and just be joyous.
Yeah.
You can be joyous, you can be light. It's an option to be in like full expression. It's in your reach to be happy and light and like, I love to dance, I love to move, I love this food. You can feel in this high and feel this joy all the time. But then also not bypassing the heaviness and the sadness that comes with losing people or change or whatever it is. But it's just knowing that there's so many highs to be enjoyed and really, really savor them, really be in that joy entirely. That's kind of one of my big takeaways from this whole experience. Just allow yourself to be in your joy and do more of the things that you love. Really cliche, but just like double down on those things that you really love to do. So for me, it's to dance. And tonight, just dancing around for an hour, I just really shook off a lot of things. I felt like I planted manifestations.
Yeah.
I had some really fun thoughts about a friend I want to go dancing with soon. It was just, there's so many, it's so important to be reframing fun in our culture as well, because fun was always synonymous with alcohol for me. Fun was always something I would do in the evening. I would have fun in the evening with alcohol. And actually just learning that fun can be something that is a part of your day throughout the day at different points, not all the time, without any substances. Yeah,
that's definitely a big one, like realizing that you don't need a crutch to actually have fun, because I feel like that's a trap that a lot of people get caught in, like needing drugs or alcohol or someone to actually have fun. But sort of when you realize you bring it all back to yourself, and it's like just being sort of in that present moment, I feel like is big. Not always like being in the future and not always relying on something. You just like bring it back to yourself. And it's like, we don't need anything to actually feel wholesome and feel happy. It's like that's something that's cultivated within. And like, I know that's a massive cliche as well, but it's sort of like you need to go through the ropes and experience it until you actually come to that understanding and be like, oh, that is true. It's like everything we want and desire is within us, ourselves. There is nothing out there that that we need, but that becomes an illusion. It's like, oh, we think we need these things. And it's interesting because it's like when you go out drinking, how often did you go out back in the day and you're having a bunch of drinks and you sit in there and you're like, why am I doing this? Like, I'm not even having fun. But then like it'll repeat, and next time you'll be like, oh, I need to have some drinks to go out. Then the same thing happens. You're having drinks and like, yeah, maybe you have bits and pieces, you talk to people and stuff, you have some fun, but then that sort of looming feeling comes back and you're like, wait, now I'm just getting drunk, and it's like, I'm going to need to go home soon. And it's like, what's the point? It's like, once you hit that sort of level, it's like, oh, you can't have fun anymore because you can't keep going in that direction while it's...
You know what I think is actually fun? I think ayahuasca is fun.
I love ayahuasca. Ayahuasca's great. My baby.
I feel like that is fun for me these days.
But that's interesting though, because it's not like a drug, right? It's not like something that you just, you drink, you feel a bit loose, you feel a bit happy, or it's not like it's just firing off chemicals in your brain. It's like you are connecting to something consciousness and you are learning from it. So it's massive growth opportunity to actually...
Well, and I think when I say fun, I think we're not talking about dancing or wanting to chat to people afterwards. I love to chat to people and I like being in that sort of lucid state. But what I find fun is this deep dive excavating into my deepest, darkest corners. I definitely wouldn't call it fun, immediately after if you asked me if it was fun. But I think the afterglow is fun. Hanging out and chatting afterwards is really good fun. And also the fact that you don't have a hangover, you don't feel low and rubbish, and
It's sort of the opposite, isn't it?
you have a
Because like the
glow.
next day you wake up and you feel great. You're like, holy crap, I feel so clean and I just want to
It's
enjoy life, and you're
incredible.
so grateful and just
The gratitude is insane. I felt through this process, and I think gratitude has raised my entire vibrational being
yeah.
since being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Like gratitude is like one of the pillars of vibration. Like gratitude, love, compassion are all
Yeah,
sort of
so much compassion
massive.
for my family, so much compassion for myself through this process, so much love I've been basking in from people I'm connected to, and I just have found myself feeling so grateful for so many things. Food has been a really big one, which is really funny because I have had a bit of a toxic relationship with food throughout my
Hmm.
life, really. And, like food for me has been something I have restricted, at many points in my life and tried to control. But actually, like, I'm really, like, as I say, I love to dance, I love to move. You can have a balance, you can eat the things you want to eat. And if you're eating majority healthy, you can afford to have sweet treats and things that you love.
Yeah.
And so in these ceremonies, I've been thinking about like different sweet buns I love to eat. I've been thinking about curries, like really, and just like thinking about food I love, and just like I am so grateful I get to have a human experience and eat these delicious things.
yeah.
And it makes me want to just savor every bite, and never feel that guilt if I shouldn't be eating this. As I say, if you're eating a healthy diet, you can afford to have some delicious, sort of
Yeah.
slightly unhealthy. Not,
As
I
you
mean,
should as well. Like that's
yeah.
part of, yeah, like you're spot on there. I think that's part of just being human and, making the most of the life experiences. Like you don't want to be dependent on different things. You don't want to like use things as a crutch
Mm-hmm.
because anything can become toxic to some sort of extent. But you also want to allow yourself to indulge a little bit. Otherwise, like, what's the point? Because I mean, so many people who are like completely vegan and never don't drink, don't do any sort of like anything that's remotely unhealthy. And it's sort of like when it gets to that point, I'm like, what's the point? Like,
Are they happy? Do they seem happy?
I don't know. That's that's a good question. Like, most of these people aren't close people that I know. Sort of just
Right.
people I meet here and there. So it's sort of hard to get a gauge on who
Okay.
they really are and what they're feeling deep inside. But I feel like a lot of people who sort of go down that road of just like being super strict with their life experience, almost to a fault, aren't that happy to an extent because it's like it sort of takes away from us. Like we should, to some degree, like indulge in things and have fun and sort of like what's the point of being here in the first place if we're just going to be super healthy and super just have perfect like
Hmm.
it looks perfect on the outside, your lifestyle, you're like, oh, I'm the healthiest, cleanest, most disciplined person in the world, but then like for what? What's the point?
There's something which one of the other volunteers here shared with me and has shared with lots of guests as well. And it's about this kind of conscious approach to the things we consume. And so even with things like smoking a cigarette, a organic cigarette, if I smoke a cigarette, not attaching negative feelings to
Yeah,
it,
not
but
attaching guilt and being like, oh no,
but
because
it's well, he basically says you can do all the things you want to do if you attach this positive emotion to it. You're not gonna drink a frothy latte and think, oh, I shouldn't have done that.
yeah,
But
it wasn't skim.
yeah,
No, what have I done?
and but if you drink it and you enjoy it, it's worth it. But if you drink it and think, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Why did I do that? Yeah, that wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
Because it's all about how we frame everything. Is how we frame it,
Hmm.
and
Well, yeah, like in
yeah,
saying that, so first, if you're like feeling guilt or shame about doing something, yeah, you're right. It's not worth experiencing those feelings for that little piece of joy, or that like little thing that you did like, because then you have to face the repercussions of all these shitty feelings associated with that. But also, like, when it comes to consuming things, I feel like it's the energy that you're putting into it is super important. So it's like, just say you're smoking a cigarette with intention and you feel good and you're like, oh, this cigarette's delicious, I'm having a great time, and you're sitting with it and you're enjoying it. I'm actually convinced that it's not going to be of any harm to you, because there's so much good energy coming into it. But if you were to have that same cigarette and while you're feeling guilty and shame, and you feel these like low vibrational energies while you're smoking it, you're consuming that energy and it's actually going to harm you a lot more. And I feel like that sort of applies to anything.
Take.
Like, that's why you have a lot of people in the world who have the shittest diets. They're constantly out drinking, taking drugs, and they can be the happiest people because they're just like happy taking these things. Of course, there's an extent, like, we are grounded in reality. We don't want to fuck up our bodies too much, but in the long run, like, if you're just doing things sometimes and you actually got good intentions behind it, I feel like it's sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of it. Like, it changes like chemically, almost on a like metaphysical, cellular, molecular, atomic level, sort of what's happening. Like the reactions in your body. Alchemize, that's the word I'm looking for. But I really do feel like intention and like your vibration and your feelings alchemizes everything that you consume.
I had this experience yesterday where, because I wasn't smoking cigarettes, and then a few people here smoke, and I thought, well, I'm going to have some of this like organic lavender cigarette. Okay, I'll have one of these. And I had one, and it was really delicious. And then someone had American.
End of story, just super delicious.
It was super delicious. There is a second part to it, because I was working in the ceremony last night, so helping the guests to the bathroom, various things down at the ceremony space, and there was a woman who had some American Spirit straight cigarettes. I had one of hers.
Yeah.
Now, I don't like straight cigarettes. I only like rolling tobacco or kind of really earthy tasting cigarettes. I can do those. But I had one of these American Spirits. And I was smoking it like, don't really feel like this. It's not doing it for me. This tastes really gross. Ugh, this is too hard on my... I was going through all those motions. I woke up today like, what did you do? Like, I was so hard on myself this morning. And throughout the day, I've had waves of frustration with myself for doing that. I felt annoyed that I'm back smoking cigarettes. I felt all these things. And I was doing it with the organic lavender ones. And I was cool with it because it was like super enjoyable, felt super intentional. And I just did it for the sake of it. You know, it's like, you could liken this to coffee. I love good coffee. We don't have the best coffee here. And I have found myself just drinking this not so tasty coffee for the sake of it, for the need to have some caffeine, and then kind of just feeling a bit rubbish, you know, not having that same full sensory enjoyable experience. Like, this is delicious. Oh wow, just like, this is so bitter and kind of acidic, and it's so bad for my body. Wow, it tastes so toxic. I'm having all of those thoughts, and that's going to be what I'm consuming. So I agree with you that, you know, maybe, you know, ultimately the tar from cigarettes probably culminates in some kind of physical illness. Yeah. But if you're doing it sparingly, like you're having a tasty cinnamon bun sparingly, you know, I think you can get away with doing it occasionally.
Yeah, for sure. It's like, shamans typically smoke, well, not cigarettes, but they smoke tobacco a lot during ceremonies. How many shamans do you know of that get cancer? Sort of like...
And their whole relationship with tobacco is so different to ours, isn't it? It's such a prayer and such a
it's grandfather tobacco. It's a spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they have a lot of respect for it, and they have a lot of gratitude when they're smoking it. And they they don't just do it unconsciously. It's not like they're just smoking it all the time. So it's the relationship with the substance or with the spirit or with the thing, I feel like, has much more of an impact than the thing itself.
Yeah, I'm going to really sit with that some more and embrace that and really think about how I consume things around me and how I frame it, because I do believe in that. I would love to piggyback on what you're saying about spirit again, and circle back to what we were
Yeah.
saying earlier, when you had this moment when you flinched, and to anyone listening, like,
Yeah.
your reaction was, I'm sort of talking at you and you're staring and then you're frowning and sort of shook your head like, sorry,
Yeah.
So, like, what is it that you can connect to in your waking state?
So energies in general, I find. So ever since I was young, so like since I was a little kid, I used to see spirits around, which is, so there's one that was always in my room. And I don't actually remember this. This is what my parents tell me all the time. But I used to wake up screaming like every night and run into their room and say, "There's a man in my room. There's a man in my room." And this happened like clockwork every night. I don't remember like the actual incidents themselves, like whether I was just super young or maybe it's somewhat repressed or something. I don't know. But I remember like the feeling attached to that house, and I hated it. It's just like the creepiest place, and a lot of like weird shit happened. So I feel like I had a connection, and sort of life got pretty dark for a while. And ever since I had this like Kundalini awakening, that like when I started getting into psychedelics to explore my own consciousness and my depression and stuff, I had this one crazy experience that like completely just like I thought I actually died, and went out into the cosmos, went through all these trials, like saw God essentially, came back as all erased. And ever since that, I feel like that's opened a doorway um, to sort of perceiving things that aren't of this reality. Um, and of course, the more I get into it, like the more I'm learning about these traditions, and I'm working with shamans and taking like shamanic medicines, and really like diving into spirituality like pretty deeply. There's been a lot of experiences that I've had, and I feel like I'm cultivating this connection to again, like fifth dimensional reality or another sort of dimensional plane, which is always everywhere, it's within us. It's like it's not a physical location, it's within everything. But yeah, so like the things that I've noticed that have gotten stronger is first like being able to travel outside of my body. So like astral projection, out of body experiences, crazy like lucid dreams and things like that. It's not uncommon for that to happen. Like a lot of it, I don't have control over it, but at the same time, it's like when it happens, it just happens, and I'm taken by spirits, and I'm going through all these fractal dimensions, and like this is sober sometimes as well. But just like perceiving energies in general, so like around people, like so there's a thing that's been happening lately. It's like sometimes when I'm speaking to a older person, I like their face changes and I see a younger version of them. So it happened like to Christine when she was sort of, I remember the first retreat that like I started in February. I was in this room actually, and she's like giving a speech to people about sort of why she founded Geistgrad and stuff. And she just like completely like her face changed, and I saw like her about maybe my age, and it's interesting because I just like felt this like different connection with her. I'm like, oh, I sort of like understand you better, like as someone my age, and opposed to being like the age that she is. Um, and yeah, it's like when I look in people's eyes, sometimes I get like images and pictures of different things, and I can like see trauma in people just from like looking at their eyes, and it just like flashes at me, and I'm just like, damn. So I feel like there's a lot of things that are starting to like come up, and just like visually, everything sort of, it's got like a grid over it now. It's like there's always like, it's almost like static everywhere, but like with, you can see like all these defined like orbs just flying around, like they're quite small, just like orbs everywhere, just like um especially like outside. I can't really see any like right now, but sort of, and like sometimes yeah, like shadows and movements and things, especially in like my peripheries. Like I'll be sitting down and I'll see like something like tangibly like moving, and I'll like look and I'll be like, what was that? But like when I try and focus on it, then sort of gone. But
Yeah.
yeah, sort of like again, the deeper I go down to this rabbit hole, the more it feels like these dimensions are intersecting. And this is how I believe people sort of do become psychic and stuff as well, because they're keeping their feet on the ground, but their head's in another dimension. They're cultivating this deeper connection with this spiritual dimension where time does not exist. So you can tap into the future, you can tap into the past, you can tap into alternative timelines. And yeah, pretty much just access some crazy like information. And yeah, like I feel like it is sort of speeding up the more like I work in this setting and I'm doing plant medicines, and even like during ayahuasca ceremonies, like they're pretty interesting now. Like I'm always seeing spirits and they're just like crazy looking. Like I can't describe them, but like I almost always see them. And it's like the ceremony I did a few days ago. Well, I saw Wendy like walk into the ceremony space before she actually arrived, and I felt her energy. I'm like, oh, she's going to be here in like a couple minutes. I'm like, oh, cool, that's interesting. Then, surely enough, a couple minutes later, she arrived, and like same thing. I saw like lost spirits and stuff. So yeah, I was talking to Christine about this. I'm like what happens when you see like a lost spirit? Like I saw someone, she's like ethereal, just like it almost looked like she had all this like mist sort of coming off her, and she's just like lost and looked pretty like sad, just roaming around. And like I was just observing, I didn't know how to interact with her, but yeah, I was chatting to Christine about it, and she's like, yeah, you can interact with them, like you can sort of send them home and snap them out of the loop that they're in. So it's like I'm learning a lot more about the spiritual dimension as I'm here right now as well, which is interesting. And sort of yeah, like the whole shamanic route is starting to make a lot more sense to me.
Can I ask if you have seen any energy around me and what you can connect to? Whether you've looked in my eyes and seen any flashes or
Nothing noticeable that I've noticed. Usually it's more of a feeling. It's not like sometimes it's visual, but usually it's just a feeling. But no, it's usually like when something stands out.
When's the last time you connected to something around someone or color or some trauma in someone?
Well, like sometimes I see people's auras, which again, like comes on pretty randomly. Like the stuff that happens, it seems like I don't really have any control over it. Sort of sometimes it happens. And yeah, I'll just see like a color around someone, almost like it's layered. So like sometimes it's gold, sometimes it's like greenish. I could learn more about the different colors and what they mean, I guess. But at the moment, I'm just like, they're just colors. And I sort of know what some things mean, but it's still a bit vague. I haven't sort of looked into it too much. But yeah.
Does it scare you connecting to a spirit and connecting?
No, it excites me.
Yeah.
Like I want to keep going down this path and cultivating whatever's happening and seeing where these sort of things go. Because first, like if you can tap into other dimensions, you have a lot of power to first like heal and help people heal. So for example, like one thing I'd like to do is learn Reiki pretty soon. And it's like, okay, if I can tap into these dimensions and I can see auras and stuff, like that's just a massive advantage. Just like I'll be able to see the energy and help take it out.
Yeah. I'm interested in that too.
Yeah, and for the same thing. So like life coaching as I do now, it's like, oh cool, like if I can get deeper into this, maybe messages will just come to me, like what I should tell someone. It's almost like channeling. And I know there are like coaches and stuff who are pretty psychic and gifted that way, that channel messages, like they can be talking to someone and all these messages come in. I'm not at that stage yet, but like I think I can get there if I keep going down the pathway that I'm going down, essentially. But it's interesting. Like it's
yeah, and you've also spoken to me about UFOs and seeing extraterrestrial life.
Yeah. So I've seen 2 UFOs here at Casa. So it was interesting. So the first one was like as Namor's ceremony was just starting to kick off. So yeah, like I was helping, so I wasn't drinking the medicine or anything, but is interesting because it's actually like doing the prayers and stuff and saying he's opening up a like the gateway. So I was going from the Maloka like back to the main area to like grab some of the food and stuff to bring down. And as I was walking up, I saw this like really bright star that I noticed like uh, on the other side of the sky for like I was looking at it for a couple of minutes and I'm like that seems sort of strange. Like this is just a bright star in the middle of nowhere. But I'm like, okay, it's just a star. And that's sort of when I went down for like 5 minutes, listened to the prayer, came back up. That same star was like over here and is moving around pretty quickly, not in like a straight line, but it's sort of like it's hard to describe, but it definitely wasn't a plane because there's just one solid like bright star in the sky, like super bright star. Wasn't a drone or anything because like again too bright, too quick, and pretty much like it started going pretty much behind some trees and I was watching it, then it just zipped off into space, like leaving sort of looked like a shooting star when it did. And it left a red trail behind it. I'm like, oh, okay, that definitely isn't anything I would recognize. There's what technology can do that. Like, it's pretty nuts. Then the other one was at the start of this retreat, actually. So, yeah, that was only like maybe 8 days ago or something. Same thing, except that like I wasn't 100% sure with this one, but like I was standing near the dining area and I saw this bright star just moving, but it wasn't like a linear trail. It was sort of like bouncing, almost looked like it was bouncing around and like, yeah, moving off course through the sky. Then it sort of just like went behind some clouds and flew off. Again, just like one solid bright light, like a star. And that one, a few of the other people saw. So I saw it, I like called over, a few other WECs and some other people saw it and I was chatting with them and they're like, yeah, I have no idea what else that could have been besides a UFO as well. So
What is a UFO?
So technically a UFO is unidentified flying object, so it's anything that we can't identify. But like when I say UFO, I perceive it to be aliens.
Are aliens people?
What do you mean by people?
Well, people, a person could be so many different things.
Yeah.
Do they speak? Yeah.
Well, like it depends. It's sort of gray lines here. Like no one's exactly sure. But no, I wouldn't say people. I'd say people refers to humans. I'd say that there's many humanoid aliens out there. There's probably plenty of different species that are either here and have made contact and have been around for a long time. Maybe there's a lot that are monitoring us right now because there's a lot of UFO activity. There's always been UFO activity, but it's starting to increase now, it seems. From my understanding, it's because the collective consciousness is at a pivotal stage. So we're essentially at a crossroads between going further into the third dimensional, which is going to lead to like some really bad shit, which is like where all these conspiracies and stuff come true, like the bad ones, or five-dimensional reality where we create a utopia and everyone starts connecting to the spiritual. And so I feel like maybe aliens there's some species out there that are monitoring us, sort of. Maybe they're not quite at the stage where they're making themselves public, but they're like starting to pick it up and it's getting closer to it. They're like, well, we don't sort of want this species to go down the shithole. So if it gets to that stage, let's really like show them some truth bombs, tell them what's going on. But it's all speculation. No one knows exactly. But I do believe there are way more advanced civilizations than us out there. And it's like, I think it's extremely naive to think that we are the only advanced species in this universe, considering we know a molecule of the universe, we know nothing about it. And if other species have had millions or billions of years longer to evolve than us, imagine how advanced they'd be. Just think how far we've come in 100 years. Like, would you even be able to picture that we had the internet and all this crazy technology that we have AI 100 years ago, no, people would be like, that's crazy, that's so far sci-fi. Then think millions of years in the future, billions of years.
And they're all manifestations of the things that we experience now, AI. And you look at all the films and literature that's come before that's speculated, predicted this. It's almost like the collective conscious has manifest these things with the power that's been behind them.
Yeah.
Do you feel like
I think everything's been manifested. Like, life is a manifestation of the collective consciousness.
And so do you feel like where we are supposed to go is this widespread awakening? And what does that word awakening mean to you?
I think it just means like spiritual development. It's like when you realize that there's a lot more behind reality than
watching television and eating chips
but like
drinking and
on a level that you're actually aware of it and you're aware of your own growth and development. It's sort of getting out of the old paradigm where it's just survival. It's like, oh, we're just animals that need to survive. Life is all about survival. It's like, that's a very shallow way to look at it. So I think awakening is to come to understand that there's a whole new level of depth to our consciousness and reality. And that opens up so many doorways as well, because we can start walking through these doorways. And that's when it gets really fun, because we can start really like changing reality, essentially, especially if the whole collective consciousness gets on board. There is a collective influence, I believe. It's not just singular. Like, there might be pioneers of this consciousness that are sort of like pulling the collective or tugging on the collective consciousness to go in this direction. You have some people who are very locked in like the 3D and very, I'd say, like ignorant and naive and just not happy, good, high vibrational people that are sort of tugging it in the other direction. So it's like wherever more people go, the whole collective is going to start moving in that direction.
It's like, just to touch on COVID briefly, but the level of fear that was felt, that fear pervades into every part of, well, for me, it pervaded into every part of my being. And I had to separate myself from the fear and not make my decisions based on fear. I had to respond to it. But I was so overwhelmed in that fear. And that was a collective fear that I picked up on.
Yeah, but it's like, I almost feel like there's a reason for that, why there's so much fear porn. Like, I don't think it's necessary to have that fear. And when you sort of break out of it and you say, wait, why am I in this fear? Why am I just watching all this news that's saying how shit everything is, how the world's going to hell, how there's going to be World War III? It's just like, everything's just drama. It's like, why are we filling ourselves with this shit? Like, I feel like this is designed to lower our vibration.
I haven't read I have different apps. I enjoy staying up to date with certain things and reading different people's opinions, but I never read anything political, never have had an interest in reading tit for tat with politics. I've had phases where I've been more engaged, but I actually had this thought today that I haven't looked at the front page of any of these websites in the UK. So I have no idea. I thought today, I have no idea what's going on in the UK.
Yeah. That's probably for the best.
Yeah, and I enjoy reading the lifestyle, the culture sections, the travel section. These are sections that I write for. So I, get a lot of enjoyment in seeing what other people are writing and inspiration. But I just haven't, since I've been here, I've been so engaged with connecting with people here, learning from them, gaining insights on their whole experience of this space. And I've also been so present with my own process here. I've been so insular and connected to my inner world and my family and the people here, the dynamics here, that I haven't been concerned with wider politics.
Yeah, perfect.
I haven't been consuming content on the Russia-Ukraine war. I can tell you that maybe a year ago when the war broke out, I was looking at every single day at these atrocious images of trucks. I don't want to talk about it. Like, the cities being wiped out, and reading these atrocious stories about people suffering. And then it would shake my whole day, where I think, how could that have happened to a real person? And it was like I wanted to feel something. It was like reading these stories allowed me to feel something, allowed me to feel fire and passion and upset, and allowed me to like feel just a bunch of emotions that I probably just need to feel anyway.
Yeah.
And I just found a way of feeling those emotions through engaging in this dark heaviness. So I can get very swept up with the sensationalism or the fear, paranoia of different events. It happened with COVID, it happened with the war breaking out. And I'm just learning that had nothing for me, a waste of time. So I'm not going to waste any more time.
Yeah, that's it. Like, it's not, don't get me wrong, it's not all bad. Like, something makes you feel sad, that like, and you have a cry, that can actually be beneficial, because that can be healing itself. But when it's all low vibrational stuff, like all this shaming, like trying to make you feel guilty for being white, all this stuff that's happening in the US, it's like this is gone like so far backwards. Like we were progressing in a good direction, then it's like, no, it's just distorted into this weird sort of mess where all media and the government and everything wants to do is just make us feel bad about everything. And it's like, that's how we know that we need to disconnect. And you feel so much better that when you're actually just living your life and you're feeling these good things, you're feeling gratitude, you're feeling empowered, you're feeling happy, you're feeling joy.
The key is just living your life, like living your life.
Live your life, like fuck what. Okay, not to that extent. Like I'll be honest, I like to dip into like news and see what's going on at times as well. But I'm so disconnected from it, like not in a bad way, but in a way I take it with everything I hear with a big grain of salt, and I'm like, okay, I'll listen to different things and sort of see what's happening, but I'm not going to fall into these games.
I guess there's decisions that are made which inform how society is structured, and it's important to be engaged in understanding of what's happening and to vote for what you care for, to have your say. But I think, I know of many people who are like tapped out from even like engaging in voting, and because they don't like, say in the States, they don't like the reds and blues divide. They're like, they just don't even want to engage with it at all.
Yeah.
But also in the UK, I can think of certain cultural figures who have opted out from engaging and voting because they're disillusioned. And there are decisions like the UK left Europe, and that has changed my options for my life in terms of
so things do affect you, for sure.
Things affect you, but I guess the difference is like, is this daily engagement, this daily obsession, all-consuming nature of the news.
Like, do what you can to strive for positive change and what resonates with your own beliefs and stuff, but don't get too attached to it and too attached to the outcome. It's like, okay, when you've sort of, you've tried to make a difference in the grand scheme of things, often it's not going to go your way. Like, but it's about not holding on to sort of that. It's like, okay, there's much bigger players out there that are calling the shots, and what real authority or influence do we have? So like, I'm not saying to go like to take the attitude, oh, I'm not going to do anything because I'm just a civilian. But at the same time, I think don't attach yourself to the outcome. Just be like, okay, observe where reality goes, but don't get attached emotionally to it. Don't get angry if something goes this way or this way. Just observe and be like, okay, I'm curious. I'm going to see how this plays out. Because decisions, there will be other people's decisions that affect you and that affect me and affect the entire world. We can't escape that. It's just the paradigm that we're in right now. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's not worth letting things emotionally affect you, because that's where the real gold pot is. You don't want external sources to be able to affect your own emotions in that sort of way. Because if you're healthy and you're working on yourself and you're sort of, you're in control of that, then again, through a high vibration, you can start recreating your own reality in a certain sense.
Do you think that we are living through a time of an awakening right now?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're going through a massive awakening. I think like humanity is at a really pivotal stage right now. And I think this is what's tied to a lot of the like UFO activity and stuff that has been reported around, and a lot of the crazy shit that's happening in society. Like, we've excelled technologically so quickly. And sort of I feel like what we've created and what we are creating has so far superseded our wisdom and knowledge as a society that it's like it's getting to a really dangerous and dysfunctional place. So it's a double-edged sword. It's like potentially it could be used for good, and AI could be a great thing. For example, like if like hypothetically we could use it to create universal basic income, everyone could get paid, everyone could pretty much, no one would ever have to work a day in their life again. If we wanted to create that society, I think that is achievable. But I think it also has a lot of potential darkness, and there's some bad directions that these things can go in as well. And it's like, it's just going so quickly. Like, even think when you're a kid, how quickly society has changed, how like it's really mind blowing to think about it, just how quickly everything's changing. So, and it's exponential. So we look another 10 years in the future, it's going to be crazily different. And it's sort of getting culminating to that point, that boiling point. I think that soon humanity is either going to be like a single swim.
I think that's why a space like this is so interesting to be in, because I'm meeting people who are 18 years old from a different generation, who are American, from a different continent, and just realizing that, oh wow, it's made me realize, okay, I'm in my late 20s now. That's what 18 looks like.
Yeah.
That's like number one. Number two, this kind of rapid change. Actually, it's even more of a reason to go more inwards and be more secure, centered in yourself, because it's the only thing we can control when there is all of this rapid change. Sort of simultaneously, I think it's necessary to stay engaged, understanding the advancements, not having to be a total expert, but at least knowing there's this thing called AI, and this is the kind of things that can happen, and not being ignorant and looking away and saying, I don't want to look at that because that's scary.
Don't bury your head in the sand.
Yeah, stay aware. But at the same time, we can't do anything about the big changes at like a really high level in technology, and there's companies that are committed to building certain things, and they're going to do that in the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years. We've got so much change coming our way with climate, and we've got so much change, with rising sea levels and what that means for different cities. And we've got a lot of collective trauma coming our way as a result of things that have already been put in motion. And that's not for me to put my energy behind it to kind of be a doomsday person, but these are sort of recent NASA satellite predictions show how there's many cities that in 30 or 25 years will be underwater. And that's a really weird thing to sit with. How could that city be? Well, it's because the sea levels are rising and things are changing. So we have stuff that's coming our way, and that will cause, a lot of trauma for people.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think, but while that's happening, I think all we can do as individuals is be centered and grounded in ourselves, trying to do the best to be able to bring some joy
and keep our vibration high.
Yeah, and to support those around us, and and maybe I shouldn't be putting my energy behind that fear of things happening, but that's just talking from predictions, which are a result of the way people have behaved already, and maybe there's a way things can change slightly, but there's also some, need to be realistic about things that
Absolutely, yeah.
have already been put in motion. Like, it's this law of attraction again, and sort of like laws of the universe. There is this action and reaction. This is the result of the way people have behaved from a place of greed, from places of ignorance, not being awake and conscious, and being very much about their own material wealth and gains. And I think there has to be an awakening. There has to be a change. There has to be a change across societies in all the senior officers, to really recognize, the fragility of the planet, and to kind of take a shamanistic perspective that, we aren't, us humans, and not the ones with the power. The elements have the power. The wind, the rain,
Of
earth.
course, being humble.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So I think the most important thing that we can do is, not be naive, like be aware of everything that's going, be educated. But I believe this is very much like a spiritual warfare, and it's not fought with guns. There's a lot of distractions. The only weapon we have is vibration, and we need to raise our vibration to raise the collective humanity's vibration. So that is how we sort of create a better world, through vibration, through influencing the collective, through experiencing gratitude and love and helping other people. Because once that ball starts rolling and everyone's vibration is raising and helping other people, then I feel like that's when humanity is going to really work itself out, and we're going to put our resources together, and we're going to overcome any problem. But as long as there's all this division and people are hating each other, and there's all this fear, propaganda, and all this shit that's going on, that's making us feel dense energy of fear and hatred and shame and all this shit, that is how we fail as a species.
Yeah, I can think of many people who live in that space of just complaining about the news and complaining about things, and I hear everything you're saying, and I feel very sensitive to the vibrations and energies people are putting out. Even before coming here, I felt like I was just confused as to why people spend so much energy on complaining about the heaviness around them, and being really stuck in this dimension of connecting to all that's wrong in the world. There is something that happens in tandem, though, which is this squashing of someone's light when someone is in that state of joy and flow. And I think we need to learn to be strong in ourselves and able to withstand people who are dark and dense and try to steal our energy, the classic energy vampire trope. But, really just not allowing ourselves to stand down and to stay true in our convictions of what we believe and what we believe is important. This desire to raise consciousness and be tapped into something beyond this material reality. And it's not to say, why is this reality not enough? Why is it not enough just to be a human in this experience? But, I think that's a reductive way of seeing spirituality, to think that this human reality isn't enough. It's that by being in other realms, connecting to something other than this physical experience, we can bring back so much wisdom to try and help the collective.
Yeah.
And that starts with your own inner healing, your own commitment to look at your wounds, to transmute your wounds, to alchemize them into something other than pain.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that influence starts small. It starts with those around you. And I think as well, what is really powerful is to consider that if one person does the work, the healing work on themselves, they can have an impact on, let's say, 10 people, right? They can impact their mum, their dad, maybe.
Yeah, it's a ripple effect.
Yeah, with people around them. And now if one person experiences trauma, is that trauma then meets those 10 people around them. So we have such a need to be committing to our healing, to be that
Yeah.
playing that
because
role.
I feel like a lot of people don't realize just how important healing is. It's not just for yourself, it's for everyone, because once you heal, your vibration raises, and that's when you actually start spreading your vibration to other people and they start healing. And sort of, it's ripple effect, but it happens with trauma as well. It happens the other way around. It happens with darkness.
Exactly.
So people can spread that darkness. People can hurt other people. They get trauma because of that. They start doing shitty things, and everything spreads. So
I've seen that in my direct family. We had a very dark man who my mum was married to, who had brought just so much darkness into our lives, and I've seen that affect my younger sibling and how that's manifest in his life. That darkness has spread, and actually part of my being here has been to be working with sort of transmuting that darkness. I saw him leave like a big rat in one of my ayahuasca visions, like scuttle off. But also I've seen the need to be so strong. I've connected to the strength and joy within my family. I also connected to, what is it called? A peacock. I connected to a motif of a peacock. And I saw the peacock feathers supporting my mum in my last ceremony. I told you last night when I saw the mural.
yeah, it's good.
I said, that's what I saw, this big peacock just supporting her and sending her strength. And I sent her a message and said, I was sending you the strength yesterday. I didn't know what was going on for her that day. But she came back to me and said, I really felt your strength yesterday, 9,000 kilometers away.
Oh, really? Oh, that's
and
impressive.
she had a couple of things happen she was really amazed by. She's in some financial trouble because of this man, and she had one bank who offered her this, they like cut the amount she owes in half. The other bank offered her some kind of deal. All this stuff happened that day. I don't know what the correlation is between me putting out the strength, like really sending her strength and support, and really feeling into all the pain. And for some reason, something changed that day where she was granted.
I think it's connected.
Yeah.
Like energy. Energy is energy. It's infinite. It's everywhere. We can tap into it anywhere. So good or bad. That's interesting saying that.
Yeah, we've left no stone unturned tonight. We generally talk about a bunch of things throughout the day as it is, but it's so good to really deep dive into all these different topics and to have this outlet to explore what's going on for me personally and some of your wild experiences with the astral projecting. And you can do some cool things.
It's still learning. Never ends. But with that said, it's been a good chat, and thanks for doing this and sharing all sharing your story and everything that you're getting out of this and all your experiences and the way you see things, which is always interesting.
I appreciate the container to be able to think through these things and to be asked questions. I always find myself asking the questions. So I like to be asked and to have to think on my feet. That's a new one for me. I've enjoyed it.
Okay. Good to hear.
Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you. With that said, have a good night. Thanks again for having this chat.